Hi there, and welcome to Fluent First Steps, where your English journey always comes first. And I'm Andy, and I'm so glad you're joining us today.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bella, and listening to this podcast will help your ears get used to real native English. You're making a great choice by pressing play, so thank you for being here. Andy, how are you feeling today?
You know, Bella, I have to admit something. My wallet is a little sad right now because I just looked at my bank app and saw how much I spent last month on snacks and coffee. I keep thinking I need to get better at budgeting, but every time I try, it just feels complicated.
Oh, Andy, I know that feeling very well. Actually, I had almost the same problem last year, and it made me feel like I was always chasing my money, but never really catching up. So today, let's talk about budgeting in a way that feels simple and friendly, because we all want more control over our money, but sometimes it's hard to know where to start.
That's so true, Bella. And honestly, when I hear the word budget, sometimes it sounds like something serious or maybe a bit boring. But really, it's just about knowing where your money goes and not feeling surprised at the end of the month.
Yes, exactly. And I think for many people, making a budget seems like something only adults do, or maybe something you need a lot of math for. But it's really not about that at all. It's about creating a small plan for yourself that makes life feel easier, not harder.
That reminds me, I used to think budgets were just for companies or people with lots of money. But the first time I tried to make my own budget, it was just a piece of paper with some numbers. And suddenly I saw why I always ran out of money before payday.
I can totally relate, Andy, because when I made my first budget, I realized I was spending so much on food delivery apps without even noticing. And I never thought of myself as someone who spends a lot. But the numbers showed a different story.
It's kind of funny, isn't it? How we can forget the small things we spend money on every day, like coffee or snacks or maybe a movie, and then all those little things add up and we wonder where our money went.
You're right, Andy. And that's one reason budgeting can be so powerful. It's not just about saving money, but also about learning about ourselves and our habits. And for me, the most interesting part was seeing the patterns in my spending. It felt like getting to know myself a little better.
Now that you say it like that, Bella, it sounds almost interesting, like a little detective story. You start with a mystery. Where did my money go? And the budget is like your map. And I guess that makes us the detectives in our own lives.
That's a nice way to think about it. And Andy, when I started to write down everything I bought, even just for 1 week, it was like turning on a light. Suddenly, everything was clear, and I wasn't so scared to look at my money anymore.
I think that's what a lot of people feel at first. It's a bit scary to look closely at what you spend because you might see some habits you didn't expect, or maybe you realize you're spending more than you earn. But once you see it, you can start to make little changes, and that's where the magic happens.
I agree, Andy. And sometimes people think budgeting means you can never buy anything fun again, but really it's about choosing what you want to spend on and making sure you have enough for the things that are important to you.
I really like that, Bella, because I love treating myself to ice cream sometimes. And I used to feel guilty, but now I put a little ice cream money in my budget. So when I buy it, I can actually enjoy it.
Yes, exactly. And it's funny because sometimes the idea of a budget makes people feel restricted, like it's a set of rules you have to follow. But actually, it's just a guide you create for yourself, and you can change it anytime if your life changes.
That reminds me of something my friend told me once. He said, your budget is like a map, but sometimes the road changes, and you can make a new path. As long as you keep looking at your map, you never get completely lost.
I love that, Andy, because it means we don't have to be perfect at budgeting or never make a mistake. It's just about trying and learning and being kind to ourselves when we get it wrong.
And, Bella, sometimes making mistakes is part of the journey because maybe you forget to write down a few things or you spend more than you planned 1 week. But that's okay. You just learn from it and keep going.
Yes. And it's good to remember that everyone's budget looks different. Some people like using a notebook, some use an app, and some just use a jar or an envelope. And, the best budget is the one you actually use.
I'm glad you said that, Bella, because I tried an app once and I got really excited at first. But after a week, I forgot my password and I stopped using it. So I went back to writing things down in my notebook, and that works for me.
That sounds so familiar, Andy, because I tried color coding my expenses with highlighters, and it looked pretty. But after a while, I just used a pen and simple notes. And, it's not about making it perfect. It's about making it work for you.
Sometimes I wonder if people get too focused on the details and forget the main idea, which is just to see where your money is going and make sure you feel good about your choices.
You're right, Andy. And another thing that comes up a lot is feeling embarrassed about money mistakes. Like maybe you spent too much on clothes or forgot to pay a bill on time. But everyone does that sometimes, and it doesn't mean you're bad at budgeting.
I used to feel that way, Bella, especially when my friends talked about saving and investing, and I was just trying to get through the month. But I learned that everyone has their own money story, and it's okay to start small.
Yes. And sometimes the first step is just to write down what you spend without judging yourself. Just notice it and be curious. Like, oh, that's interesting. I spent more on coffee this month. Maybe I needed those coffee breaks.
I like that because it feels more friendly and less stressful. And once you start to see your spending, you can begin to make small changes, like bringing lunch from home one day or skipping that extra coffee now and then.
And the best part is you don't have to change everything at once. You can take it slow and do one little thing at a time. Maybe you just look at your bank balance every Friday or write down your expenses at night. And over time, these small steps become habits.
That reminds me of a funny story. Bella, one time, I tried to cut all my spending in 1 week just to see if I could do it. And by Friday, I was so bored and hungry, I ended up buying a giant pizza, and it totally ruined my plan.
Oh, Andy, I can imagine that. And that's the thing with budgeting. If we try to do too much too fast, it can feel impossible, and then we just give up. So it's much better to do small changes that you can keep for a long time.
Now, I'm thinking about priorities, Bella. Like, how do you decide what's really important to spend on and what can wait? Because sometimes everything feels important, but I know that's not really true.
That's a great question, Andy. And for me, I started by writing down what I need every month, like rent, groceries, transportation. And then I looked at the things that make me happy, like books or music. And I tried to find a balance, so I wasn't just paying bills, but also enjoying my life.
I like that approach, Bella, because it's not just about surviving, it's about living. And, when you plan for fun things in your budget, you feel less guilty and more in control.
Yes, and sometimes it means saying no to some things so you can say yes to others. For example, I stopped ordering food so often so I could save for a little weekend trip, and that made the sacrifice feel worth it.
That reminds me of a time I saved up for a concert ticket by making coffee at home for a month. And at first, it was hard, but when I finally went to the concert, I felt really proud of myself, and the experience was even more special.
That's such a good feeling, Andy. And budgeting isn't just about money. It's also about patience and planning for things that matter to you.
I agree. And I think another thing people forget is to celebrate the small wins. Like maybe you save a little, or you pay a bill on time, or you remember to track your spending for a whole week. That all counts.
Yes, Andy. And when you notice your progress, it helps you keep going, even if things don't go perfectly. And it's important to be proud of yourself, even for little steps.
Sometimes I think people worry they need to be experts before they start budgeting. But really, you just learn as you go, and you don't need to know everything before you begin.
That's right, Andy. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And it can even be fun to challenge yourself to see how creative you can get with your spending.
I actually made a game out of it once, Bella. I tried to see how many dinners I could make from just what was already in my kitchen, and it turned into a funny adventure with some very strange meals. But it helped me see I could be flexible.
I love that story, Andy. And it shows how budgeting can also teach us to use what we have and appreciate the small things. Sometimes I find a snack at home that I forgot about, and it feels like a little gift from the past.
You know, Bella, I think another part of budgeting is talking about money with friends or family, because sometimes we feel alone with our worries. But when we share our struggles, we can help each other.
That's true, Andy. And when I talk to my family about budgeting, we found ways to share things or plan meals together, and it made everything feel lighter and less stressful.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I remember when I was too embarrassed to talk about money, but now I see everyone has something to learn, and we all have good days and bad days.
And that's why it's important to be gentle with yourself. Andy, just like you would with a friend, we're all learning, and no one is perfect with money.
That's a big relief, honestly, Bella, because sometimes social media makes it look like everyone else has it all figured out, and I'm the only one who can't save a dollar.
Oh, I know that feeling, Andy. But the truth is, most people are just trying their best. And it's okay to take small steps and go at your own pace.
That reminds me, Bella, I used to think saving money meant I could never do anything fun. But now I see that budgeting actually gives me more freedom because I know what I can spend without feeling worried.
Yes, and it's all about making choices that fit your life, not someone else's. And, you can change your budget whenever your life changes. Maybe you get a new job or move to a new place or even just want to start a new hobby.
I think that's my favorite part. Bella, your budget is always yours, and it grows with you. You're not stuck with the same plan forever. And that makes me feel better about starting.
And if you ever feel lost, Andy, just remember, your budget is there to help you, not to punish you. And if you get off track, you can always start again tomorrow.
I really appreciate that perspective, Bella, and I think it's time I give budgeting another try. But this time, I'll start small. Maybe just write down what I spend for a week and see what happens.
That sounds like a great plan, Andy. And remember to be kind to yourself and maybe even give yourself a little reward at the end of the week just for paying attention.
Now, I'm curious. Bella, do you have any small tips or tricks that made budgeting easier for you? Because sometimes the little things make a big difference.
Well, one thing that helped me, Andy, was setting a reminder on my phone just to check my balance every few days. It keeps me aware without feeling stressed. And, sometimes I even write myself a positive note just to make it feel nicer.
I like that idea. Maybe I'll leave a note in my wallet that says you're doing great. Or remember to smile because money shouldn't only be about numbers.
Exactly, Andy. And another thing is to celebrate the moments when you say no to something that isn't really important. Sometimes just pausing before you buy can help you see what you truly want.
That's true, Bella. And I think slowing down before buying something helps you feel more in control and less like you're just reacting to every sale or ad you see.
Yes. And when you take your time with your money, it often leads to better choices. And, it can even make you feel a little more peaceful inside.
I feel a lot better about budgeting now, Bella, and I hope our listeners do too. Maybe it's not about being perfect, but just about trying and being a little more mindful each day.
I hope so too, Andy. And to everyone listening, remember, budgeting is your tool, not your enemy. And you can make it as simple as you want. And each step you take is worth celebrating.
Well, Bella, this has been such a helpful talk for me, and I really appreciate your stories and your ideas.
Thank you, Andy. I always enjoy talking with you and sharing these moments. And to all our listeners, thank you for spending your time with us.
You've just listened to Fluent First Steps, where your ears guide your fluency.
thank you for joining us today, and we hope you keep listening because every time you do, your English grows and you become a little stronger.
Take care and see you next time.
Bye for now, and keep taking those small steps every day.